This is a download from BFM 89.9, the business station.
Morning, Dodge. Now that earnings season is tapering off, what will the market look for next in terms of sentiment? Will the situation in Russia have any impact?
Good morning, Nadia. Well, yes, indeed, it will. It's probably the primary mover in terms of sentiment. In terms of economics, we're going to have the FOMC making its policy announcement on Wednesday, but there won't be any further reaction to that because it's really going to be we expect tapering to continue. We are looking for April ISM manufacturing on Thursday and April employment on Friday. But really, what we're expecting is not a market mover, just a support of the tapering to continuing. The real nut that we're going to have to be watching is the situation over in Crimea and what Russia does. We've seen this before several times, and we expect that it's going to become much more difficult. And I don't think a peaceful political solution is going to be possible. And so I think it's going to create a lot of volatility in the markets, and unfortunately, we expect the news to be more negative than positive over the next 3 months.
What earnings are left to excite, and what sectors are you eyeing in particular?
Well, in terms of sectors, natural resources are taking a little bit of a pullback, but we still are quite favorably disposed toward them. Oil-related favorites are undergoing a short-term correction now, but longer-term they remain bullish. We like real estate investment trusts. Many of the utility issues are doing well. In terms of sectors, gold stocks, which has suffered a very nasty correction in recent weeks, could be getting ready to come back to the fore. And we're watching from a technical point for the industry, for the sector as a whole, to consolidate and then start to move out of its space that it's forming now. On the negative side, the oversold aggressive growth stocks that got jammed during the latter part of last week as shorts were covered, we feel that they're going to again head south. So from a shorting possibility or a negative point of view, we'll be looking for the growth stocks again. Longer term, we're going to be watching bonds as we feel they have seen a low for this cycle. And in terms of this week, there are 16 or so companies that we're watching, but the most important on Tuesday will be Merck, Bristol Myers, eBay. On Wednesday, Time Warner, Phillips, Dominion Resources. On Thursday, oils are important. Exxon, Conoco, Phillips will be coming out. Also MasterCard, because it is a big maker of market activity. And finally, on Friday, we have 3, Chevron and oil, CVS Caremark, and then Estee Lauder. Not that Estee Lauder is such a big company, but we're getting back to retail, and it will give us a little bit more of a sense of future retail trends.
China's March industrial profits are up 10.7% year on year. Is this a good sign for you?
Yes, Nadia, it is. Initial signs of stabilization in China's economy are coming out now. We're due a lot to the government's targeted measures to underpin growth. What we're going to be watching for this positive news to continue is whether China is going to have to increase its policy support if it's going to be needed, particularly as their structural reforms put additional pressure on activity, which we've discussed in prior months. So yes, it is positive. It remains to be seen if it can continue on its own accord.
Looking into that as well, do you have a comment on the GE deal and Alstom as it goes to the EU gods for approval?
Well, from what I hear, Nadia, I think that we're going to be seeing Siemens coming to the fore and delaying the possible GE deal. And in fact, Siemens may be able to win the proposition. From what I understand earlier today, or perhaps yesterday, your time, Siemens submitted a letter to the board of Alstom to signal its willingness to discuss a future strategic opportunity together. Now, I believe it's proposing an asset swap in which Siemens would acquire Alstom's power business in return for its high-speed train and locomotive units, as well as a significant amount of cash for Alstom shareholders. The French probably would be much more disposed towards Siemens' overture because, from their perspective, it would create 2 European world champions in the fields of both energy and transport. Siemens proposal, from what I understand, could be preferable to the French, as it would make Alstom a much stronger competitor in the transit sector. And there is a perception that a European company would be more culturally in tune and less likely to cut jobs in France. Unfortunately, that's one of GE's strengths in terms of being able to consolidate acquisitions. And if you take a look at Alstom, it's one of France's biggest employers. It has 19,000 workers. So that's going to be an important part of the deal. GE has done this before. They attempted to buy Arriva back in 2010, and their bid was turned down in favor of a domestic solution. So it's not a certainty that GE is going to win, and the fact that Siemens has come into the picture is going to make the situation quite interesting and much more European-related.
Emerging markets are regaining momentum. Is it sustainable?
Could be, yes. What we're looking at is really both absolutes and comparisons. And from a comparative point of view, the actual difference between the developing and the emerging markets is definitely narrowing, and it's been narrowing over time. And that's made emerging market bonds much more attractive than they've ever been. So, yes, I do suspect that there's going to be a continued interest, particularly as interest rates stay low and tapering continues, but without the impact on actual interest rates. So I do believe that it will continue for some time, but from an economic and fundamental point of view, at some point, the emerging markets are going to have to prove that this interest in their market is going to be sustainable from an economic point of view.
That was Dodger Dolan, Chairman and Chief Investment Officer of Land Infused Capital Managers in New York.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.